Greetings from the future, Tales from the Metaverse. Welcome to another series of shows dealing with the Metaverse. Today we're starting on a new adventure. We're going to start looking at navigating the Metaverse, how to get around the Metaverse, what worlds are out there, what is unique about the various worlds, and even actually redefining what a world is, because we, I think, haven't really come to that conclusion yet.
It is such a huge topic that we're talking about here. This is a mountain to climb of information. So, the unpacking of it and putting it together for people new to the metaverse, there's a lot to consume. So, we're trying to make this a digestible, enjoyable experience as well as educating you at the same time. So, um, welcome to the metaverse.
Oh, good. I like the word digestible. Thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, well, for sure. As Eric said, it's a big mountain to climb. We are now moving from defining ideas of the metaverse and what it could be and what people see in that to the practical part. Like, okay, how do we get into the metaverse or one of the metaverses or however to define that? And what can be done? What do we need to do that? Do we need a headset? Do we need a PC? What kind of practical things do we need, and what can we get out of there today?
No, thank you for that. There's so many descriptions of the metaverse that, we've got a couple up here on the screen that really don't do justice to it. I've been collecting descriptions of what people think about the metaverse, just jotting them down I should have been putting them in a spreadsheet, but they're in a Word document right now. And I think I have over 145 different definitions that people have come up with about what the metaverse is. So we'll
145.
see.
Awesome.
So let's go ahead to the next slide here, which is some of these metaverse worlds that we're going to be talking about. And this is difficult for us to decide which worlds we're going to look at, simply because there are so many and there continue to be more brought online all the time. So in this particular three-part series, we're going to focus on at least 5 or 6 of these worlds, but we'll add to it and we'll have additional shows on new worlds. Of course, the most important one to most of us here is Alt Space VR, where we're at. And next week, we'll be talking about Sansar. In fact, we'll have a special guest on from Sansar. But, this goes back to what the definition of the metaverse is, in that Chris and I have been discussing this in length in terms of whether Alt Space VR, for example, is a metaverse or a world in the metaverse or a platform, or, I think, Eric, Chris, you came up with some other definitions that were similar to space, I think universes and whatever, if you'd like to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, first, I would like for all the things on the web, when you go and download an app like Outspace or whatever, for me it's a platform. Anyways, on this platform you'll find worlds. And I would compare it a little bit like metaverse could be universe that we know, and in the universe we will find different galaxies, and in the galaxy we will find different sun systems, and to the sun system there are planets, worlds. So a little bit like that. But metaverse is such a big construct, and so many different people will contribute to that. We can leave that open in a certain way. We don't have to push the people into one definition. And maybe that's has to do with the democracy of the metaverse that we talked about last time. Like, give them space and ideas and possibilities to evolve. So, well, everyone has his idea.
I mean, one of the main things that I see in the definition of the metaverse that we still need a while to achieve is that it's supposedly a connected space where, as you say, I mean, you could fly from, Earth to the moon or whatever in the same spaceship. Unfortunately, that part of the metaverse isn't here yet, where we basically have to enter a particular world. And, we're in a world now, I guess. The studio in itself, as far as alt space definition goes, is a world, but it's within
Definitely.
alt space. And if we wanted to go to VR chat, for instance, we have to exit alt space to go to VR chats.
I realize that's muted. um, you're summing it up well. I mean, right now, some people think that this is maybe not advanced enough to where the metaverse is right now, and they're waiting for it to be real people in here or more options. And there's some people that like to be here kind of in the early stages of it and just almost embracing the change. They don't realize that, we have to be here doing the work now or later on for people to really enjoy it. And that's when spaces will be more connected. And I still think that there will be some kind of load times and stuff like that to travel to another place. Like if you're going to one planet to another planet, if you want to put it from that sense, it takes a certain amount of time to get there. So I I don't know. I think I'm discouraged by it. You just got to embrace where we're at because it's going to be ever evolving.
No, exactly. And we'll be talking about technologies like mesh in a minute, which enable or hopefully will enable one to move from world to world.
When I look at that, that's a lot of time. I haven't even been to most of those places, most of those worlds. You have to be quite an adventurer, and each one of these has their own whole thing that they're developing for it. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to navigating this because it's going to throw me in to experience some of these other things in these other worlds.
Definitely. I mean, each of these different platforms has its features, and they're built around an idea. Altspace is obviously built around the idea. People have a meeting space, they can talk with each other, they can have events, and then maybe also do a little bit of gaming. That's the idea. Others, like Decentraland, are concentrating a lot also on the economics. We already made a video about that. The economics of the metaverse, like connections to cryptocurrency and selling something like virtual land, and then you can use it and have your own property, have your own space, and meet with people and stuff. So, yeah, probably each of those different platforms has a special concept. We will probably talk a lot for the next 2 episodes coming about what are the pros and cons and what do you need to go to one of those different forms, and what makes sense maybe if you have a certain idea what you're searching for. um, I think it's really complex, and we have to always to take into consideration that so many people haven't got any idea about virtual reality or all the backgrounds, so we need to keep it simple.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think that the conversation completely always goes to is the monetary. What is the value of it? And some of these things that are being built, it has monopoly-esque things, and everyone's trying to put money in because of the reward of the money. And I again, I think that obviously money is what makes a lot of things function, but in the metaverse, really, I know we've talked about seeing that shift, but I'm looking forward to um, seeing more of what we can do that's not just the money. um, or so I don't know. That's what I'm
Well,
looking
on
forward
that
to.
topic, interestingly enough, one of the worlds we'll be looking at, I think next week, possibly, or the week after, is Horizon. And Horizon yesterday released the fact that they are now introducing a payment system on a test basis where people can use a traditional payment method on Horizon to buy various goods and possibly services too. So, that's definitely the way things are going. And then, other worlds here, for example, Spatial and Decentraland are coupled to a crypto token. And so, that unfortunately, I think is the way of the world, that commercialization is really on top of everyone's minds. I mean, if you look at Second Life, which is another one of these worlds that we'll be covering, although it's a 2D world only, the whole Second Life economy is driven by trade and the Linden dollar, which they've been doing for years and years. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks looking at these various worlds, platforms,
So we don't think metaverse encapsulates all of that? The true meaning of metaverse?
Metaverse, I think, at least to me, is a very broad definition that, does encapsulate all of it. But where I think we're at least, I think there should be a better term is when we look at some of these worlds or spaces or whatever they're called. And, side quest, as you see here, we have a screen up, is a good example of this, where somebody can create a world basically in Unity and then push it to the Quest headset or another headset and invite people to join them in that space. And so you have a multi-user thing going on in a separate space. And that's probably akin to web pages many years ago, where people are creating these little spaces or worlds or whatever the final definition is. And in this case, we have a help club where people go to for help with anxiety and depression and apparently more. And one of the nice things about SideQuest, as we'll talk about all of these worlds, is that this one runs on a Mac, PC, Linux, and Android. And they're doing some interesting things with the Android, enabling people to side load
I do love that we're
games.
plugging Help Club, because I feel like if you're watching this right now, you could feel like I definitely need some help, because this can be overwhelming. And just stick with it, go through the process, and go to the Help Club. Maybe you're feeling some anxiety while you're in here right now. Take some deep breaths. I think something that we're not covering in this thing that's very important when you're entering into this world from a virtual reality space is to go slow at first and adapt to your environments. Don't overwhelm yourselves. Don't try to go for the sensory overload, because it's an adjustment to get used to these worlds. So,
Exactly.
Well, I have to say
Chris,
that,
thoughts?
in my opinion, the most important thing on SideQuest in that case is you have to come back to the economy for in a certain way. We have to think about that we are using devices, for example, mounted displays like the Meta Quest. And somehow, if you are a developer and you want to develop your own application, your own world, whatever, you need to get to the point that people can download and use that. Normally, that would be done using the Quest store. But you're not allowed to push your developments to the store, because there are people that have to check it and to see if it's correct, if it's working, if it's malfunctioning or not. And SideQuest is a very special thing. SideQuest was started by a couple from Ireland, and they did a great job because they opened up the whole infrastructure, the whole system, to any developer by side loading. So you can, because all these technology is based on Android, for example, MetaQuest, you can load your development data on the headset just by cable and by using the application SideQuest. And then you can use your own developed game or world or whatever. You can send it to other people because it's a file. They can use that as well. And this is a game changer. So many developers that had not the chance to send their developed apps to other people because they were not on the official store would use SideQuest and invite other people, hey, check what I did. And that is, again, a big game changer for democracy and also for a lot of people being able to check what other developers are doing, checking what kind of ideas are on the market or maybe are not yet on the market because they're in a beta stage or whatever. So this was a major game changer for the whole infrastructure. I think that's very important to see.
And that's a good segue into the next slide, which is technologies. And, just to talk a little bit more about what you said in side loading, one of the important developments, I think, as far as the Oculus went, is that they started enabling something called App Labs, which is both available in SideQuest and through the Oculus browser, which enables people to build apps and push them out to the general public without having to go through the Oculus store. Now, of course, going through the Oculus store means that the app has, or Meta's blessing rather, is
Right. Yeah. It's really hard keeping track with all the changes. Like we bought our headsets; they were called Oculus. Today they're called Meta, and Facebook is changing more into this brand Meta. So we can see how much impact and how much changes are made in the last 1.5 years for the whole topic. We can see how rapidly this is evolving. And that's exactly why we do this show. That's exactly why we want to show all the people out there that have no contact to this yet what basically is going on here. And this is important to go through the different steps. And yeah, when we take a look at the basic technologies, you wrote them down, right?
exactly. And, we'll be going through each of these technologies as they pertain to the worlds we'll be looking at and which technology you need. For example, when we talk about spatial next week, spatial is great in terms of being multi-platform in that you can access spatial through a Android phone, through a PC, and through the Quest headset. So, and I really like the phone access because it gives people access to these worlds without having to buy a headset or a gaming computer.
One of the things that I think is really like, I like that because I feel like some people, when you talk about this stuff with technology, they think the minute you say virtual reality or whatnot, you need a VR headset. So it is amazing to see that you can use a smartphone, your computer can get you in, and just really, if you're connected digitally, you are literally connected to the metaverse. So some people that say that they're not into it, no, you're into it. If you're on the computer, you're just in the 2D of the metaverse, but you are in it.
Yeah, but I
Definitely.
mean, I would argue about being in it. I really think that the immersive experience that one gets from having a true VR headset, and one of the, as you'll see there, the first technological breakthrough here that people are still using, although it was discontinued in March of 2001 or 21 rather, is the cardboard Google Cardboard, which enabled one to put a cell phone in a HMD like device, and people were actually selling those devices on and I think they still are selling them on Amazon, where you can put a
Oh yeah,
cell phone,
a lot.
clamp it in there. But again, I think in some ways it does a disservice to VR because it gives people a false impression of what VR is. And, the,
Well, I don't think so. I mean, you are immersed. You can look around, and I used also social VR in the cardboard. Very simple ones, but it was possible. And sure, you cannot walk around. You don't have the full experience. But as an entry for anyone who has probably a capable smartphone and $5 for these cardboard things that you could buy on eBay, you can have a quite nice virtual impression. So it's not that bad. But sure, today it's quite outdated.
Yes, exactly what you both were saying. I mean, John, I get it. The being in here is another level. But I do believe people making that connection to where if you're on your computer, it's the metaverse is everywhere in the world right now, and I think people are not accepting that. Just the data that's being transferred, even on your phone and all of this information that's traveling, like people think that this is the next level, but you're still in it even though you're not in it. If that it's more connected than I think people realize it's connected. So that's like putting the dots together. That's
yeah, but I think to me it's the difference between an immersive experience and one where you're looking in. Not to say that
yeah.
having cell phone access is bad. I think it really is good because if you're having a conference, for example, you could have people in here in having an immersive experience, but you can also have people listening and possibly commenting using a cell phone. So, I'm all for technology that includes everyone. And as I say, Spatial has done a good job of that.
Definitely.
I was also going to talk about the Airlink, which is an interesting technology that Meta came up with. And I've tried it a few times, and it seems to work okay. I haven't pushed the boundaries with it yet, and I plan to do so over the next few days. According to all reports, it replaces the cable, and so gives one another foot up with this wireless technology.
Yeah, being untethered is for sure a very important thing because sometimes you just want to have this freedom to walk around through a space and don't have a cable attached that you probably need for transmitting the data or getting power, for example. I mean, the Quest has been untethered from the beginning, basically. Just if you have those very heavy loaded scenery that is heavy in terms of calculation, you need a good laptop or a desktop computer, and then you have to tether your headset to transfer the data. And with the Airlink, it's going to be by standard wireless. But again, there's a lot of data being pushed forward all the time. So, well, it's still in the making.
Far as like data transfer goes and stuff like that, we're seeing it every year. The new phone comes out. Like if you look at the specs that you have on a phone now compared to like 20 years ago, the amount of data that it's just like it's mind blowing. So it's like, it's like where are we going to be at in 10 more years with technology? Because it's definitely, I feel like, more advanced, but again, like the way the system works is they just tend to roll things out slowly and amp it up for the people because they got to get that maximum profit out of it. So, I mean, I understand. They're not going to give us the best thing.
Yeah. If we come back to metaverse and our intention to give a little bit of guidance for the people on technologies at the moment, I guess there are for sure the possibilities to use 2D screens as well for entering worlds. You can use a tablet, you can use a smartphone, you can use your PC or your Mac or whatever kinds of system. And also on Linux, for example, you have basically the possibility to use one of the platforms that is running on a web browser, like Mozilla Hubs, for example. So you're not completely out just because of the platform or operation system that you choose. So there are many possibilities to get into the metaverse, one of the metaverses, or however we define that. And I think that's important to see that people have the chance to use it. It must not be any additional cost. It depends how immersive your experience should be. We here in Altspace at the moment are all using a headset, head-mounted display. I think all of us are using the Meta Quest at the moment. That is the most selling device at the moment on the world, as far as I see. And again, this is one way to do it, but there are also a lot of other products on the market. You will probably have a look on some of them as well. We are not related to any company. We are not selling you anything. It's just to have a look on what is there, what can be used, and what's the easiest way to entry.
Welcome. We are talking about navigating metaverse, and everybody is doing it in their own way. We want to educate people on this. I don't know if you want to come up to the couch and talk about your experience that you've kind of went through with technology and what you're using.
Hey,
Hey, how you
Pepper,
doing?
good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Get back from vacation and trying to adjust back to my normal life.
How long have you been in, and what did you kind of start as?
Um, I've been in here for about a year, and I'm a creative. I do graphic design, web design, 3D modeling. I do a lot of work for local architects, taking their blueprints and putting it into a 3D model. And I decided to come in here and try it a couple of times, and it's been really amazing to be able to build something and actually walk through it now.
How do your
I
clients feel
typically
about it?
work
Do
in.
they?
No, the clients, they're excited about it, but a lot of my clients can't handle the VR. So the one thing I do like about Altspace is that it has a desktop version for people who can't really deal with this headset. And one client I had, she got nauseous and she wanted to do performances in here and she couldn't really handle it. But I have a couple other clients that I'm working with that are local art galleries. They're interested in bringing their art into this world and experiencing it. But
No, that's
I
something we're going to
typically
be
build
talking
it.
about. Navigating the metaverse and how people do get nauseous. I luckily have never been nauseous, and so really don't have a good understanding of what people go through, but have been with people that after a few minutes it's just too much for them and they had to get out. And so I can sympathize with people, but I've never experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, the first set I had was the Oculus Rift, and when I first got it, you kind of have to learn how to wear it, how to adjust your eyes, how to get comfortable with it. I got nauseous at first, but I was so enamored by the software and the technology, I kind of forced myself through it and getting to a point
Right.
now navigating through here. I don't really have a problem. I don't use the blinders or any of that other stuff. I can navigate pretty well without it. But navigating in the space, I think a lot of the stuff that I build is kind of like this, like true to form in the real world. Because I think some people are going to be a little bit apprehensive about, because you can go into some of the, the more, con- you know, out there worlds and get lost and get confused on how to move through the space. And I think for new adopters, having kind of this first steps of coming into a space kind of gets them used to it, and then they can be more adventurous later on.
So,
No, very good point.
from your experience, because we're doing this show, especially also for people that have no contact with the metaverse yet, or social VR or something. So when you think about your experiences, and you're doing that quite for a while, and we visited your worlds, and you're quite evolved already. What do you wish for the metaverse for new people? What do you think would be the best tool to have or function or something? Do you have anything in mind? What you think is missing?
Yeah, definitely a way to catalog and look through, kind of organize your favorites. Be able to navigate through your favorites is really a pain because after you get like 7 or 8 pages, you can never find anything. And then exploring new worlds. I usually come on and I'll go to popular or popular or featured, and the feature doesn't really get updated too often. Um, Popular is just kind of a roll of the dice what shows up there. And you have to go to your browser to do a search to find anything particular, but there's no search feature in here for something like that.
Yeah, I think that's on top of everyone's list is favorites keep coming up that make things easy to find, which they aren't right now, unfortunately.
And we have to think about that. Will have different platforms. Now we're talking about Altspace a lot, but if people start to use Spatial and Altspace and VRChat and others, is there anything that connects it? We're talking about all that quite a
Yeah,
lot of times.
I
The metaverse is a connection of all that stuff. Is there anything like a Google, like a metaverse Google, um, you know, that
a
brings
Google
us
verse.
directly somewhere in Googleverse? Yeah, that would be nice.
Like to me, it makes me think of like a phone book, right? From old technology. It's like, where can I go? What is out there? And what all exists. But then it'll be like categories too, like, oh, I want to go to this kind of thing. I'm looking for this. So I think that's part of the power of the metaverses too. Um, we can create so many experiences so somebody can go into something exactly what they want to go to. So I think, yeah, that's right
Yeah,
on, Pepper.
yeah. I have a world that I built and I shared it, and I can see that about 30 people are using it. But it's actually really interesting me to see how they're using it and what they're doing with it. And I can only find like two of them. The other ones, because they typically they'll rename them, and you can't really figure out, where they are.
So you
Yeah, for
made the
sure.
template available to people then.
Right.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
What kind of
I
world
mean,
is it?
I copied the dojo from Matrix.
Oh, okay.
wow.
Interesting.
I just did a rendition of that.
But it's very valid. I mean, you made a world, and people invited anyone to come. And now it would be interesting what people think about it. Like a guest book would be nice.
Yeah.
Sharing a link, like, well, I was here, and my name is whatever, and you can find me here or there. That's my email address, whatever. Find me in a different world on a different platform. Let's connect and all that. For sure, this is important, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Pepper. I agree. I love that the Matrix even where it's like 'cause we're in the Matrix. So, we all different people are creating very interesting things in this metaverse and how we're going to reimagine things. So, great to
Yeah, and I
see you,
think that's
Pepper.
kind of very shocking for people too, because some of the worlds are very very different, you know, very ethereal, very out there. So sometimes I think the first hurdle at the beginning was cost. When I first got my Rift, the Rift was like I think $800, and then the computer I needed to run it was another 2 grand. So that entry level was taken down once they came out with the Quest. And now the Quest is at a price point where people can get into it and they can come straight into the metaverse without too many jumping through too many huddles. Now the next thing is really organizing the information and delivering it to where a large volume of people can consume it and navigate it in a very easier manner.
Well said. Um, if you want to continue on this talk with us, we definitely have a few more things that we want to go. So you can stay up on the chair, but why don't we get to the next slide? There was a lot on the technology. Okay, yes, the mesh. So this is definitely an interesting topic here. Um, I'm fascinated by it. Supposedly, the mesh is going to connect us on that next level. I'll let somebody else eloquently put this, but I'm fascinated on how this is going to integrate.
Yeah, I mean, these are, in my opinion, quite interesting developments for the future. They are getting developed now. We have to explain, I think, that mesh is first, it's a word for something like a 3D object. We call them meshes because 3D objects are made out of little triangles, and all together you get a mesh, and that shows up like an object. But Microsoft used that term mesh to generate new functionalities for the metaverse. For example, people know from workplace, or maybe from experiences because of the COVID epidemic. Those tools like Microsoft Teams, where you can do connections and have video talks and stuff like that. And Mesh, as a technology, is now putting functionality from Microsoft Teams into the metaverse. So people are not just doing a video chat, they are doing a chat like us here in our space, for example, in a virtual environment where they have an avatar where they can meet and so on and so on. So classical technologies as we know them from the PC are now getting transferred also into the metaverse by companies like Microsoft. And the same applies to Omniverse, and that's a technology coming from the company NVIDIA. NVIDIA is one of the biggest, maybe the biggest manufacturer of graphics cards, of those little things in our computers that are generating the images here. And now NVIDIA started the Omniverse, and that is not a word like this here. The Omniverse is a technology that helps developers to bring in their meshes, their objects, and convert them in a way that they can be used in any other platform. We talked about different platforms like Spatial or Altspace and so on. So they're trying now to do the connection between all these different parts of the metaverse. This is pure technology. It's mostly used by developers at the moment. In the end, it will help a lot to make fluent um, usage of the metaverse easier in the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mention, mesh in context of a 3D model, because when Microsoft first announced this technology, my immediate thought was that they were stealing from the internet, which is really a mesh topology network that so it would be interesting actually to go back and see exactly what they were thinking when they coined the term
Well,
mesh for their
both is
next
somehow
generation.
fitting in a way. So I think both things fit to this topology and to these topics. So I think the name is not too bad, but in the end, people are thinking about very different things. Like you're thinking about the big mesh of a network, and I'm thinking about the mesh as we call those 3D objects. So, well, let's see what people think about those names in the end.
No, exactly. And I think we, as we said earlier on, we're basically redefining or defining some of these things that are unclear to most people. And one person might, as you say, you were thinking of a 3D model. I was thinking of a network. I think the interesting thing about mesh is that Microsoft includes Altspace VR, where we are at right now, as part of their mesh network. And so we might be the first to see exactly what transpires with mesh. In fact, I mean, we have seen some of the promise where, Facebook, Microsoft, and others have shown what's to come in terms of holograph.
Yeah, I
Yeah, they
actually
gave us a
attended
tease.
an event here in Altspace where a hip hop artist was doing a concert with the mesh, and it was amazing to watch it, play out. I hope that that technology comes soon because I think that's going to be really big for. I have a lot of clients that do conventions, like 800 to 1,000 people conventions, and being able to bring a speaker on stage from a remote site and have the actual speaker on the stage, it would be a lot more impactful than the avatars that we carry around normally.
Yes, very, very much so. Those holographic avatars are very, very impressive, and it'd be great to
What's
see
that
more of
next
that.
level of realism? People then, when they see a real person there speaking, now all of a sudden,
So let's continue on. We, have a few other, and this goes back to our, question as to whether these are part of the metaverse or not. But Steam, I believe, provides so many people with a jumping off point into metaverse worlds that we would be remiss by not including it, particularly when you look at the numbers where, when I took this screenshot, there were, approximately 20 million people on Steam with approximately 5 million people playing games at that particular point in time. So, I think they're definitely part of the metaverse. Any thoughts on that, Pepper,
Absolutely.
Eric?
I mean, Steam is definitely also a social network because on Steam you can buy your games. A lot of those games are social. You play them together with friends. You maybe exchange them. You have an account. You can do that. You can lend them wherever. And so a lot of people have contacts there. They have connections. They can write messages and stuff. So they are online. And Steam, on top of that, is offering something like Altspace is doing in a certain way. It's platform for virtual reality. Have your own home there. You can visit people. You can jump into a game. So Steam is one of the major platforms, and they are also developing their own headset technology for quite a while.
I haven't used it yet, but looking at those numbers, it's really impactful that there's a lot of people using this stuff. What is an avatar? Well, this could be an avatar right here. Another version of ourselves. I think it's interesting because you go to the different platforms and everybody has a different interpretation on what that avatar is and what it can be. What do you, I think that's one of the true 100% powers of being here in VR is you can look however you want to look, like whatever color is speaking to you or gender is speaking to you. It's very, very fluid. All different colors of the rainbow. We've got people here from Pandora, and some people are green screen. There's some power to it. So you guys can continue on though with what.
I think it's funny. I live in a homeowners association of 150 homes, and there's strict guidelines as to how your house should look, the color of your house, how you do your yard. And I think the metaverse really gives everyone a chance, avatar wise or building wise, to express themselves as they want. Um, and it seems like everyone here pretty much accepts. There's a very large community of acceptance. Whereas, in the real world, it's very defined lines and defined rules is how you conduct yourself and what you, display and what you do in your home.
It gives the possibilities. I mean, as the world creator, you can make your own rules. You can say, well, I can lend some space to you or Eric, and you can build your own house, but has to be a castle, right? I could do so. Anyone has the chance to make up their own rules. Um, and unlike to the real world, there's no end. We are not consuming a lot of resources here. We can have so many castles as we want, and there's no problem. We don't lack stones or whatever kind of stuff in the end. So it has nothing to do with all the restrictions we have in the real world.
So we have Rob right here. So we're talking about setting up an app. Oh, he disappeared. He was like a ghost, though. He looked as white as a ghost. And so with setting up an avatar, I think the thing that's interesting is that you have a full color palette on clothing to skin color to everything. And what you're seeing right now is what we've all chosen to be. And there's a real power in that. I'm not really familiar with the Ready Player Me. Do one of you guys want to speak on that?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
can
Ready Player Me basically is an effort to allow people to create avatars of themselves. I think that's the main goal, where you can actually take a photograph of yourself and use it as the avatar. And I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Coming to some of these worlds, and you can see like they've got these models of different people in there in different versions. I think it's kind of cool. It's like these different skins, and when we're gonna go to different worlds. I think the whole thing is interesting. Being able to be different versions of your.
Yeah, no, definitely interesting. It takes up a lot of bandwidth, though. That's the only issue, and cause problems. But
they are
you know,
Yeah.
quite detailed, and you can take them away. Ready Player Me can be integrated in many different other platforms, and so they're really cool because you generate them and they can be used on different platforms, and not like here in Altspace we have to use the avatars that are made within Altspace, right? So there are a lot of additional possibilities. So I'm quite interested to see where they will be integrated in the future.
yeah, you bring up a great point. That's one of the strengths of Ready Player Me, is that they are cross-platform avatars, and so everyone looks the same in terms of going from one world to the other, which has been a big complaint. People do want to have a digital identity. And I think, the natural progression of that is that everyone will probably become an NFT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about navigating it, this guy Mark, who seems to be a personal trainer, this is interesting as well to just see how all these different people are integrating in here. And as far as navigating, what are some of the things we can do here in VR is pretty powerful. Everybody always wants to fly. That's one of the superpowers in the real world. And teleport. It sounds cool, and you can go into a portal as well, and it teleports you to another spot as well. So it's very much like a kind of a sci-fi movie.
It is.
Yeah. I was
Yes.
telling my wife the other day when we were on Florida, I was like, I wish I had a door in my home. I can open it and be on the beach or be someplace else. And, you know, the VR, actually, I wouldn't be surprised in about 10 years they start selling homes with dedicated VR rooms where you can
Yeah,
set up your
yeah,
own space
definitely.
and be able to move and walk and engage a lot differently in these worlds.
Yeah, I
Good
can
point.
imagine so.
Good point. Actually reminds me of a friend of mine that owns a recording studio, and he wasn't doing as well as he should have been with the recording studio, so decided to paint everything with in green and make it a major it was a large space, very large green screen space. And he's apparently never had so much business since he did that. I think there's definitely truth in what you say. It's coming. People are going to be used to living in VR, where instead of having decorations on the wall, they'll be able. I mean, we'll be able to, do very much like we're doing in VR with a headset in 2D space.
I
So we
think
have a
I
few
think
other
that
guests here. We're a little bit out of time. If anyone has any thoughts, comments.
I'm interested seeing Mark as a personal trainer here, seeing how if you want to come up to the couch, I don't know. I would like to ask you, a question as far as where do you see personal training? Are you using this yet in the multiverse, or are you wanting to at some point? Are you training people? What's your take?
That's a really good question. So I was a personal trainer before the pandemic set in, and then when the pandemic was in full flow, I bought a headset, and I've spent all my time like in the virtual world. And actually, I'm not in fitness anymore. I've opened up a dating venue called Dates VR in here, and I met my now fiance in Alt Space. So just testament to what you guys were saying, that the metaverse, as it were, has completely changed my life. And yeah,
Interesting.
like I've set up a business in here. And it's doing pretty well, not outside of fitness, in the realms of dating. I was literally on the radio this morning, and BBC Radio UK literally was covered by the Sun US and some publications about what I'm doing in here in the world of the metaverse. So yeah, it's pretty big. And I don't think, like you said a minute ago, I don't think there'll be rooms for VR. I just think, like you said, like you'll put your glasses on and it will just overlay a completely different environment in your existing environment. I think it would be a sleek pair of glasses eventually. So yeah, that's it. And I appreciate that I'm very late. So yeah, I missed everything. So that's where I'm at.
You
Really
know,
appreciate the comments.
Or you showed up just in time.
you're not too late
Yeah.
because this topic is going on in the next two episodes as well. We will be here every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. That's still correct.
Correct.
And if you're coming back, we will have a lot more to discuss about this topic, navigating the metaverse. So the last episodes, we were talking a lot about the backgrounds, like economics and democracy in metaverse, and all these ideas. Now we're getting practical. Like, what can we do here, and what can people find in the metaverse? And it would be great to see you all back here and talk more.
Yes, very much so. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Eric, any last comments?
This is a
Yes.
huge topic that Pepper. It was great to hear your feedback, and Mark. I'm glad that you squeezed in another talk show to put yourself on today, because we've been filming this as well.